Or then, what is the main difference between cold ethanol extraction and butane extraction? And I think of it in terms of what's left behind and what you take.
The residue.
What colour?
Rough.
What colour is butane extracted oil?
Golden.
Right. What colour is cold ethanol extracted oil?
Dark green.
Right. What's missing?
Chlorophyll.
Right. So the main thing that butane extraction does is remove all the chlorophyll, so that you have reduced your biomass and it makes it easier to tell what you've got left in your medicine. But it's still quite whole plant because you're not really removing the most medicinal parts. If you're really strictly a purist, you want to keep your chlorophyll. But you don't have to.
Isn't chlorophyll good for you?
Chlorophyll's good for you, but you can add chlorophyll. You can just juice some and get the chlorophyll.
And it makes it harsher
you know.
if you're smoking it.
Yes, it does. It's a lot, and it's much easier to get your dosages and stuff like that. Okay, so if you have a cold ethanol extraction and you've done it well, what percentage of that will be THC? And it doesn't matter what strain you've used or what the percentage is in
50.
the plant.
Rough, 50?
Yep. Sarah?
50?
Yeah. I'll give you 1 point for that. What do you reckon? Tweet?
10%.
No, Morgan's much closer.
60.
Yes. All right, she can have 2 points. Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking approximations, obviously. We don't have thin layer chromatography and mass spectrometry to analyse all of our oils and blah, blah, blah. So we're still stuck in the old illegal green market type stuff. And we can just approximate, but you can pretty much say that a cold ethanol extraction is about 55 to 65% of THC. So the rest of it is all the other stuff, which is pretty good anyway, but it does make it a bit hard to start judging how much dosage you're getting of anything. So when you have butane extraction, what can be your range of THC in a butane extraction?
1 to 100.
It depends on how you do it. Okay, so have a think about it. So all the chlorophyll's now gone, and that comprises, could be up to 15% of that biomass.
You'd be up at about 70.
Yep. So you get up to about 70%, anywhere from 70 to... It depends now, because there's a thing you can do with butane extraction, so you can work them. There's always little micro bubbles of butane left, and that's another controversy. Is that bad for you or not? Well, maybe it is, but how much butane do you inhale when you light a joint or a cigarette with a butane lighter? And certainly the amount that you'd be ingesting is negligible. So you can actually create a butane extraction that goes from anywhere from about 75–80% up to approaching 100% purity. But my argument with that is that once you get over 90%, there's not much left, is there? Where's your whole plant profile gone? So when you look at an extraction method, you want to have a look at what you've got left behind too, what's it taking, what's it leaving behind. You really want to retain your terpenes. Okay, guys, I want you to name as many terpenes as you can, and you can all have a go, that are found in the cannabis plant.
Limonines.
Yep. Point.
Flavonoids?
Flavonoids are not terpenes, but I'll give you a point because flavonoids are also found in the cannabis plant. Myrcene, yep. Do you know what they do? You get an extra point if you know what they do.
Flavour.
Myrcene. Yeah, we'll give her a point for that because that's a general thing. The terpenes are what give your weed your flavour and aroma. And
Myrcene cleans your receptors too, doesn't it? Or it enhances.
Myrcene's really a sedative.
Okay.
It's a sedative type of terpene, so you'll find that it's always more present in indica strains that are indica dominant because it's part of the thing that creates couch lock.
They're also anti-inflammatory.
Yes, yep. Actually, Sister probably knows more about the terpenes than I do.
Curcumin?
And the limonene, well, they're the ones that are or have always been used for mental clarity. So you'll find that your sativas, the ones that give you the very cerebral high and get you, you know, they'll be high in those sort of terpenes. So the terpenes play a really crucial role in the type of stone that you get, but they also have medicinal qualities. So, you know, once you get up to 99% pure with any way it's extracted, supercritical CO2, butane, you won't approach it with ethanol. You know, where are your terpenes? Like, they might only be a couple of percent, but they're gone. You know, so just be really wary when you're looking at products. If it says it's 99.9% pure, I'd run a mile. I really would. And that's almost certainly what happened to that young lady out there.
Quite.
She vaped pretty much 99% pure THC, cannabis naive, and, you know, what you drop. You just drop. You know, I mean, we do need to remember, and this is why the advocates of complete home grow, that everyone should be able to make their own medicine and stuff.
I've got a comment.
Yep.
Cannabis can drop your blood pressure.
Absolutely.
Drop.
Yep.
And people that have heart disease problems can actually die from
Yes.
cannabis overdose.
Theoretically.
And there have been 1 or 2 deaths
Attributed to it, but yeah. But then again, it doesn't mention the other 13 big pharma meds they were on.
But in saying that, CBD maintains my heart function.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on your heart condition.
Yeah. And so there's a theoretical risk with heart conditions that a high dose of unopposed THC can kill you. And, you know, yeah, it's in the ballpark there. But that's why I think with certain conditions that you do need to see a doctor or a naturopath or herbalist. You do need that guidance. You know, for 3/4 of the population, you can try any old weed and it'll probably do what you want it to do. But the other quarter, they're very problematic. These are the patients that, you know, don't get very good treatment by doctors because they can't fix them. You know, the heart sink patients that we used to call them. I used to have a lot of those heart sink patients. They used to come to me. But yeah, so, you know, it really is, it's just not as innocuous as people think. You know, it's a really powerful drug. When it's isolated, it becomes a drug. You know? So, you know, my thing is, you know, I've had enough years of isolated drugs and big pharma. I'm really happy to go back to natural medicine now and see what the plant world can do, because it's just fucking fantastic. You know, like one molecule and all this shit they do with pharmacology, and you go to phytochemistry and you're dealing with fucking 150 molecules in the one plant. And they're wondering why they can't do double-blind randomised controlled trials on it. How do you isolate that? So, of course, what that big pharma did was take one compound out of the plant and turn it into a drug. And then, of course, you get all the adverse effects. Willow Bark is probably the best example of that. Can any of you guys tell me the story of Willow Bark? Oh, we just would have got your bonus 5 points. Willow bark is a wonderful anti-inflammatory herb. And back at the end of the 19th century, they found out it was the salicylate in it that was the really good stuff. And so they isolated it and added an acetyl group to it and called it acetyl salicylic acid, and that's aspirin. And that's what we use today, which can eat out your gut lining, and it's a blood thinner. A very good anticoagulant. Willow bark isn't. Willow bark doesn't thin your blood, and willow bark doesn't rot the lining of your stomach. Because when they isolated it, they took away the protective things that were in the plant that stops you from getting the side effects. Like, you know, honestly, it's like this eye-rolling no-brainer thing when you finally get the concept of plant synergy and how plants are meant to work. The entourage effect in cannabis is just an example of the plant synergy of the plant kingdom. And it is extraordinarily fascinating stuff. It's even more interesting than the human body, and I thought that was pretty interesting. But I find the plant world even more interesting. And they don't even go anywhere, they just sit there. You know, they just sit there in the ground and do this wonderful stuff. And I mean, and anyone who's a gardener, you know, that's learned the joy of making something out of almost nothing. It's just so wonderful. And I truly believe that the things that got me through my cancer journey was researching cannabis medicine and learning to grow herbs. And I think that was the most healing things I could have done, was getting out in the garden and learning how to grow herbs, because I'd never had time to do that before. Yeah, so, I mean, we must be just about near the end. We need to do... Hang on, we've lost what...
She'll be back in a minute.
Okay. All right, here's a chance, guys. Well, big mouth's away. Let's get another couple more questions in. Okay, so if we're looking at the history of cannabis, and we've discussed 1937, what was the other huge big thing that happened in the history of cannabis that, well, not just cannabis, let's just say all recreational drugs?
Prohibition.
But who did it and when? Yep.
Harry Ainslinger when...
No, that's the 1937 one. Oh, but he did keep going, but I'm talking about who did it in the 1970s.
Nixon.
Absolutely. We'll give him 2 points for that because he really had to search. You could see the little things going in his brain, like, yeah. And so, and what did Richard Nixon do? Yep.
He declared the war on drugs.
He declared the war on drugs. So if you're looking at the history of cannabis, and we've actually covered a bit of that today, that is the next thing that happened. So we've had this extraordinary circumstance where one country in the world has influenced all other countries via the UN to form treaties about recreational drug use. And I think that we'd all be agreed that the war on drugs actually created the drug epidemic. You know, like when you forbid something, anyone that's under 25 is going to try it because you've forbidden it. Like, aren't they just dickheads, aren't they? You know, that they can't get that simple fact. If you make something forbidden, it makes it more attractive. You know, and I mean, and that's what I mean. They even had, oh, okay, do either of you know the answer to this one? Why did they call it marijuana?
Because of the Mexicans. They associated it with a madness.
Yeah, yep, that's part of it. So you get a point for that, yep.
What it was is they didn't want to mention it as hemp in case the farmers would oppose it. They wanted to call it marijuana because it was a Mexican term, and nobody knew it was actually the hemp plant they were going about banning.
Yep, absolutely. You get a point for that, and one more. Well, it wasn't just the hemp plant. Like, they didn't want the general public to realise that it was the same thing as their cannabis tinctures that they had in their medicine cabinets. And in fact, the word marijuana doesn't even translate to cannabis. It actually comes from some form of dogweed or something, some loco weed they use in Mexico. And so it didn't even mean cannabis. So you will get some very rabid cannabis advocates that will just about cut your throat if you use the word marijuana. It is now anathema, apart from in the hemp party, and I tried to change that. I'm saying, you can't have marijuana in the name.
Yeah, no, I think they're just trying to be all-inclusive.
I know. But still, you know, I mean, and of course it was back in the day when we, you know, didn't vilify the word as much as we do now.
And I think too, you know, ganja, marijuana, it has so many terms, so...
Yep.
I think the more terms
Yandi?
we use... Yeah, the more terms we use, the more...
Out my way, it's Yandi.
Destigmatise it and know what we're talking about.
Yep. So, what's the difference between hemp and cannabis? So I want you to... These people don't know anything about it. How would you tell them the difference between hemp and cannabis? All right, tweet, go ahead.
It's a level of THC, I believe.
Yeah, you're right, and you'll get a point for that. But
it's also the forming of the fibre. The hemp has a longer,
you're getting close
fibre.
to it. So they're all cannabis, right?
It's not as resinous.
They're all cannabis?
Yeah, everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all cannabis.
Yeah.
And all cannabis is good cannabis.
Yeah. So, but why do we call some hemp and some cannabis?
The THC content.
Yeah, but people will go...
It's below.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a high CBD, low THC content.
Yeah, and that is what...
medicinal.
But you can also get medicinal strains that are high CBD, low THC. So what makes hemp?
It's one that's what is it? A rude rat? Is it a rude rat? Or whatever.
Shall I go have a go, tweet?
What's the drum name?
I think it's is it the level of THC is lower than 1%, I believe, and to be classified as a hemp plant.
It's more that I think you can both get a point because you're circling around it like sharks in a fucking thing. But what it actually
we all
is,
need a joint,
is
Dr.
that
Deb.
yeah, I know. I'm thinking the same thing.
I can't
We
think.
must be just about ready to wind up, and we have to call it a draw. I think
It's
you two have done really
medication
well.
time.
So I'll just explain the answer to this question. So for people, because a lot of people will say, well, what's the difference between hemp and cannabis? Okay, hemp's industrial.
Yeah.
Cannabis isn't. Cannabis is what we talk about if we're talking about medicine, recreational use, and maybe food. Right, that's all cannabis. But if we're talking about hemp, which is also food, but there's a difference between, so it's easier just to stick to hemp is industrial and cannabis is recreational and medicinal, with food being in the middle because it comes from both. And that's the easiest way because, we know industrial hemp is defined by having a THC lower than 1%. But it's just the uses of the plant, and that's what the difference is. Like, people say, oh, this is hemp seed oil, this will, that's from hemp seed. It's got nothing to do with cannabis oil. It's from the hemp seed. It is food.
Yep.
So this is why I like to try and make the distinction between hemp and cannabis, because people get confused. Hemp powder is the protein from the seed. That is ground up and put in a packet. Whole hemp is the seed. That's the food.
Superfood.
It is superfood because
Could you-
it's complete protein and
Could you-
it's
Could you do the same with cannabis seeds?
absolutely.
Same.
I mean, if you don't want to grow cannabis plants, with them.
Here's a little bit of trivia. If you eat your hemp seeds at 50 grams a day, which is a good, daily allowance, you're eating 18.25 kilos a year.
Yeah, and also, and the reason that hemp is such a superfood is because the seed contains the protein, which is what we in vegan land call a complete protein, because it contains all the essential amino acids. So there's only a few other foods that are like that. We have eggs
Great for your
for the
mental health.
non-vegans, and we have quinoa and soy. But soy can be problematic because of its
Soy's bad, isn't it?
phytoestrogen effects, so you can't really overdo soy. Soy can be a bit allergenic, but you've got 2 plant and 1 animal-based sources of complete protein, and that's quinoa, hemp seed, and eggs.
So is hemp more fibrous, making it industrial?
Yes. The whole point of industrial hemp, it's grown for the length of its fibres, as Dee said, and that's why she got a point. So you can imagine if you were trying to grow that for medicinal reasons, you get a tuft of leaves on the top. And, so industrial hemp can be grown for fibre where you want the long, metre-long fibre things that make it so superior to cotton and textiles and paper. Or you want to grow it for seed, so you must make sure you clear it with any illicit growers in the area. 25 kilometre at least exclusion zone. You cross-pollinate their crops with industrial hemp and they'll fucking
You're in the
kill you.
ground for compost.
So if you want to go into industrial hemp, just check that there's no illicit growers growing super strains that you're going to completely fuck up with your industrial hemp. You will get a higher CBD crop though. That's full of seed. And the other thing, of course, that the seed contains an oil that has the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 that's found in the cell walls. So our cell walls are actually made of lipids, they're made of fats, and that's why fat-soluble things go so well through the cell walls, and that's why cannabis does too. So this plant, it's just so extraordinary that within the plant, it actually gives us the means by which we maintain our endocannabinoid system and maintain the other neurotransmitter systems. Because along with all the lovely medicinal and recreational, spiritual, as Michael likes to call it, properties, you have a plant that by eating it you're actually helping the other parts of the plant work because you're providing protein, which are the building blocks to make your receptors and to make your anandamide and 2AG and all that, as well as all your other neurotransmitters and everything. And you're maximising that absorption by keeping your cell walls healthy with the oil. So, you know, and I'm not saying it's the only superfood, but fuck, it's a good one. You know, and that's the thing, like, there's no other plant that just does everything that hemp does. Like, no other plant. So it's lovely. So anyway, well, Morgan, we'll make it a three-way tie. So all three of you will definitely be at Mardi Gras in the grand final, especially Dee, you've really earned your spot. You have. And I don't thank you. Can you thank them? Because I reckon they've done really, really well. And see, all these people missed out. It was really good, wasn't it? Like, really interesting. Yeah, so I know, but this is what happens after lunch on a Sunday. And we've now got a 6-hour drive back to Gundawindi.
Well, Morgan's next, aren't you, talking?
Are you talking next?
Does anyone care?
I know, I'm a hard act to follow. Thank you, and it's so good to meet you at last. We've done a lot of stuff except actually meet.
Yeah, what about...
Maybe you can interview Morgan, Deb. Ask Morgan some questions, do a little interview.
So are you supposed to be giving a talk on your own?
Yeah, but...
And you want me to baby you?
Yeah, go on, Deb.
Well, she did the talk
Okay.
Yesterday.
Oh, all right, you did take care. I know, I missed your talk.
Hey, Morgan, cuddle up to Deb.
Yeah, get a bit closer. We'll do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, and I have with me Morgan Taylor.